Kentucky Derby.
Move around the turn. The leader, War Admiral, 2.5 for 3.
Next for Barrett is in the center of the racetrack. Seattle Sloop drawing alongside again.
War Emblem is still there. War Emblem is pulling away. He's got another gear. Yeah, that's West Lake coming the Derby. Wheel away takes command. Lion Hunt is all Hunt. Smarty Jones is all out. And here is the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby since Seattle Sloop of 1976.
Derby week has officially arrived. The buzz is getting louder and louder. Can you hear it? Temperature in the mid-40s, sunny skies, fast-main track, comfortable conditions. Here in Louisville, Kentucky, under the Twin Spires of Churchill Downs, it's the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show, presented by TwinSpires.com. Let's take a look at the headlines. The full field is expected to pass the entry box for the Longines Kentucky Oaks, and the post-position draw will be covered live this morning from the Aristides Lounge at 10:45 Eastern Time. Due to a slight temperature, Caddo River was declared out of Kentucky Derby 147 by trainer Brad Cox on Sunday morning, and Brooklyn Strong's name has now surfaced as a possible replacement. He was scheduled to work earlier this morning at Parks with a decision pending. Should he run, he would slide into the 20 spot. The winner of the Remsen was 5th in the Wood Memorial in his lone 3-year-old start. Corey Lannery, who has 19 riding titles at Churchill Downs, has been tabbed to ride Sainthood, one of 4 Kentucky Derby starters for trainer Todd Pletcher. And the California duo of Rock Your World for John Sadler and Hot Rod Charlie for 2-time Kentucky Derby winning trainer Doug O'Neill arrived at Churchill Downs on Sunday morning. Both are expected to get their first look at the racetrack here this morning. And he's here to rock your world. Taking a look at the surroundings, he's like, man, it's a lot colder wherever I am now than it was a few hours ago when I was in Southern California. Rock Your World 4 trainer John Sadler, who did win the Breeders' Cup Classic with Accelerate a few years ago here at Churchill Downs. And accompanying him on the road from California was Hot Rod Charlie for 2-time Kentucky Derby winning trainer Doug O'Neill. Hot Rod Charlie, the gate-to-wire winner of the Louisiana Derby in his last start, the runner-up in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile behind Essential Quality. Fans are gathering. It's dawn at the Downs here at Churchill Downs again this morning. Enjoy your breakfast. Enjoy the sights, everybody. I'll be up at 8:05 sharp for some scrambled eggs and bacon. Joe Christopher, Scott Shapiro. Scott, happy Derby week, man.
Happy Derby week to you. Happy Derby week to everybody out there. Just a few days from the Kentucky Oaks and, of course, the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. I'm excited to see Rock Your World and Hot Rod Charlie after Essential Quality, 2 of the horses that are going to take the most money on Saturday, Joe.
Yeah, I'm excited to see them, too. Nobody gets more excited about the Kentucky Derby than I've met in my lifetime, except for maybe John Asher, than James Scully. James, we're going to start with a sad note, though. John Ward, trainer of a 2001 Kentucky Derby winner, Monarcos, passed away on Saturday at the age of 75. My greatest Kentucky Derby score ever, and it's hard to believe it's been 20 years, man.
Yeah, very sad news. Our condolences to the John Ward family, 75 years old. He not only won the Kentucky Derby with Monarcos in 2001, he won the Kentucky Oaks with Gallon and Ruckus in 1995. A longtime executive director of the Kentucky Racing Commission. Like I said, involved in horse racing his entire life. So our best wishes to their family. Sad to see John Ward pass away, Joe.
All right, James, excited, though, for what's going on the racetrack, obviously, this morning. We'll be checking in with you several times during the course of the show. And we'd like to check in with all of you on social media and have you check in with us. We welcome all the fans down at the Downs, and we're going to get an opportunity to answer some social media questions today. We welcome you from all over the country and the world. Send us those questions. That's all the variable social media outlets. Let's take a look at the Derby point leaders, down to 20 now, potentially. Scott, we lost a potential speed threat yesterday with Caddo River coming out.
Definitely changed things up from the front end perspective. The pace might be a little bit slower. Maybe other horses that weren't planning on going to the lead will change their tactics. You see Mandaloon there, Essential Quality up top, Brad Cox bookending the top 10, Joe.
Let's take a look at the second 10. And again, Brooklyn Strong, the decision on him pending in the 20 spot. Umberto Rispoli, if the horse does come, will be the rider. Keep me in mind, King Fury recently drawing into the body of the field, and we mentioned in the headlines that Corey Lannery will pilot Sainthood for trainer Todd Pletcher. Mentioning that Caddo River has been withdrawn from Kentucky Derby consideration. Let's find out exactly why from his trainer, Brad Cox.
Attempt yesterday afternoon, we wanted to pull blood work this morning and just see where we were. It was off a little bit, the blood work, and just obviously it's not the right decision to run him on Saturday. So we'll talked it over with Johnny yesterday afternoon, got the blood work results back this morning, and just his white count's off. It's high. So we just back off of him a little bit and, regroup. He'll, probably, hopefully, back to the track in a few days.
Well, Scott, lost some of the potential steam up front. Brad Cox now with 2 Kentucky Derby horses and Essential Quality, the likely favorite, in Mandaloon as well. Disappointing for Brad, who's never had a Derby starter, but at least he's got 2 representing him in this year's 147th edition.
Yeah, nice that it wasn't his lone option. He definitely has 2 strong ones, likely favorite Essential Quality, and Mandaloon has been very impressive in the morning, looking to bounce back from that disappointing effort in the Twin Spires Louisiana Derby.
Brad Cox with 2 Kentucky Derby starters this year. His first 2, Todd Pletcher, no stranger to the race. He started more horses than any other trainer, and he's won the race twice. Has 4 horses this year, James, including Florida Derby winner Known Agenda, who has the best credentials coming into the Kentucky Derby of the Pletcher quartet, but not hearing his name very much from handicappers as far as who their top pick might be.
Yeah, and I think part of it is the fact that, he's not the flashiest workhorse. He's, but he's been happy and content here at Churchill Downs. Really a horse, too, that in his first 2 stakes races, Known Agenda, ran, was 3rd in the Remsen, 5th in the Sam F. Davis. So he's really come on of late in his last 2 starts. Now, that Florida Derby was an impressive win. He won it by open lengths, but he drifted out in the stretch a little bit. But he still could wind up. I mean, I think 3rd choice in the betting, maybe 4th choice. He's still going to get some action. He's going to be in that mix of contenders right after the favorite.
Curlin has yet to have a Kentucky Derby winner. He's got 2 Derby horses this year, 3 Oaks horses from that amazing stallion who was 3rd in the Kentucky Derby during his 3-year-old year. 6 Derby and 5 Oaks horses this year are homebred. So looking very forward to seeing how everything plays out, Scott Shapiro. And Known Agenda, definitely one of the horses that we're looking forward to seeing, as is a couple from the trainer that we're glad to have join us now, Steve Asmussen on the backstretch, who has Midnight Bourbon in this year's Kentucky Derby along with Super Stock. Steve, thanks for joining us here on a very, very busy morning for you.
Glad to be here.
Steve, Midnight Bourbon, let's start with him. Very striking individual, obviously very consistent. He's going to get his final work this morning. What are you looking for him to do?
I think the racetrack's in excellent condition this morning. Probably going to let him go a half mile, 50 and change, let him gallop out another 1/8, and then ease him up from there.
Just talk about him as an individual, Steve. Midnight Bourbon, obviously very consistent, hasn't missed the board in 7 starts, and he's been fighting all the fights this spring.
I like the improvement that he has shown. Quality 2-year-old, kept very good company, but as you know, he's a very big horse, carries a lot of weight. Really feel like his time's coming. Run some solid races this spring. He's obviously going to have to run better in the Kentucky Derby than he has in any previous race, but common sense tells us that we're setting on a very good race with him, and very interesting makeup with some of the deletions, the recent deletions we've had in the field, and the pace scenario ought to be to his liking.
Steve, your other Kentucky Derby contender, Super Stock, I know has been a special horse for you and your family. Talk about how he is doing coming off that career best effort in the Arkansas Derby.
Absolutely. He's a horse that's given my family a whole bunch emotionally. Horse's training, his work Saturday in company with Max Player was his best yet, and as you said, he's coming off his lifetime best race in the Arkansas Derby, and so we're still dreaming the dream.
Steve, I was going to ask you about Clairiere. She ran so well here at Churchill Downs last fall, breaking her maiden and then running second in the Goldenrod. Just wondering if you could talk about how she's doing after those races at Fairgrounds.
Well, as you mentioned, Clairiere last year here, first time out, 2-turn maiden race, and came back and run second in the Goldenrod. I think they were very good races for a filly that was young mentally. She has matured beautifully. I love how she goes over this racetrack. Very sharp in her half mile yesterday, full of herself. So we couldn't be any more excited about the opportunity of running her in the Oaks Friday.
Steve, Pauline's Pearl, the other filly in the Oaks, took a little longer than her stablemate, at least to me, to figure things out. How's she been since that effort last time out winning the Fantasy?
That's a filly that's come on in leaps and bounds. I didn't see that coming. Trained okay, going into her first race. Very, very nice mover, but her pedigree has come to the forefront, being a daughter of Tappet out of Hot Dixie Chick. Off of her first race, stretched her out from there, and every one of her races to this date has been considerably better than the previous race.
Steve Asmussen will become the all-time leading trainer in the history of the sport later this fall. Steve, we thank you for joining us. 2 horses in the Derby, 2 in the Oaks. And I want to put a subject to bed real quick, something you and I have talked about. I've been getting some text. Pronounce your last name for everybody, please. Please do.
Hello, my name is Steve Asmussen.
Steve Asmussen, okay? See, there you go. We got this on tape.
Asmussen. It's Asmussen. It's Asmussen.
There you go.
How come when I say it, it doesn't sound like when you say it?
Do I say it closer than I used to?
I don't recall. Sorry.
All right. Thanks, Steve. We appreciate your time.
All right.
All right, trainer Steve Asmussen, the Hall of Famer, and obviously the leading trainer in the history of this sport now, or will be in November, leading trainer in the history of Churchill Downs. Man, what a career, and obviously would put an exclamation point on it with a Kentucky Derby win.
He does it at all levels. He runs an amazing operation at multiple venues. We have to think that Kentucky Derby win is coming soon, Joe.
All right, so a lot goes into the Kentucky Derby, trying to pick the winner, replays, you look at the training, et cetera, and we want to look at that 1.25 mile pedigree, and this is very subjective, but this is my sensational 7 in order. We're going to start with Mandaloon by Into Mischief, sired last year's Kentucky Derby winner, Authentic. The Dam Brooch was a grade 3 winner on turf, lots of stamina on that Dam side of the family. Turfy pedigree on the Dam side, always a positive here at Churchill Downs. Rock Your World, $650,000 Keeneland September yearling by Candy Ride, all turf on the Dam side of the family and plenty of stamina as well. Essential Quality, homebred by Tappet. The Dam was a multiple stakes placed sprinter, half the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly winner Folklore, and grade 3 placed router Divided Attention. Midnight Bourbon, we just talked to Steve Asmussen, a 2-time Breeders' Cup Classic champ. Tisnow is the sire. Amazing Dam. Midnight Bourbon is a half to Cocked and Loaded. $1.6 million Haskell winner Gervin, and grade 3 winner Pirates Punch. Lots of route in that pedigree. Known Agenda by Curlin. He did RNA for $135,000, which is interesting. The Dam earned $654,000 as a versatile multiple graded stakes placed individual. King Fury by Curlin, $950,000 buy on the Dam side out of Terrace, a sprinter miler type. So the question about the 1.25 mile distance, but could not be any better bred as an individual. And finally, Dynamic One by Belmont Stakes winner Union Rags. The Dam was 0 for 2 in the career, but a half to revved up, multiple graded stakes placed turf marathoner. Another generation back to 2 amazing fillies in Storm Flag Flying and My Flag.
I remember having high school teachers like you, tough grader Joe, King Fury, just a B. I think he's regally bred.
Let's see what the Oaks grades look like. They're going to be a little bit higher. Medina Spirit, from all those royal pedigrees to Prontonico, and a horse that originally sold Scott for $1,000, flipped, I believe, as a 2-year-old in training for $35,000.
Great purchase by the connections there, led by our friend Gary Young. I think Medina Spirit could find himself on the lead with the defection of Caddo River. Rock Your World got the jump on him in the Santa Anita Derby. Johnny V might be a little more aggressive this time.
Take a look at him and his training. And James, this is not the prototypical Bob Baffert $500,000, $1 million horse that he brings to the Derby. Obviously tied with Ben Jones for the all-time lead in Kentucky Derby winners. Medina Spirit, though, not royally bred, but man, he's been tough and he's been consistent.
Yeah, very consistent. Never finished worse than second, Medina Spirit. And Scott was right. He is definitely a candidate to be setting the pace now with Caddo River out. You know, he's going to be a double-digit odds for Bob Baffert. You don't expect that too often. Six-time winner of the Kentucky Derby. But if that California form holds up, I mean, that would be in Medina Spirit's favor, Joe.
Medina Spirit will be ridden by Johnny Velasquez in the Kentucky Derby, and he's got 3 Kentucky Derby wins, including 3 of the last 10, and good combination. We saw it successful last year with Authentic on the lead, Scott.
Yeah, Johnny V and Bob Baffert look to be the first back-to-back winners in Kentucky Derby since Rodden Turcotte and Lucien Loren in 1972 and 1973.
And he's done it a couple of different ways. Was 0 for 12 to start, 3 for his last 10. Animal Kingdom, always dreaming, Authentic, versatile rider is Johnny V.
Yeah, the last 2 winners from just off the pace or on the pace. Animal Kingdom from well off the pace, Joe.
Horse that recently drew into the Kentucky Derby field is Keep Me in Mind. Keep him in mind because he won the Kentucky Jockey Club right here at Churchill Downs as a 2-year-old. Robertino Diodoro was his first Kentucky Derby starter, and we got to see him with a very fast work the other morning here at Churchill Downs. And James, this is a deep closer, but he went really quick the other morning.
Yeah, encouraging to see that move, I thought, Joe. A quick move from Keep Me in Mind. Really just don't know what happened this year. I know he had a little bit of a delay at Oaklawn Park where his seasonal debut got pushed back a couple weeks. But you mentioned it. He just hasn't really run as well as people were expecting this year, given that 2-year-old class. He ran 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile before winning the Kentucky Jockey Club over the track. That affinity for the grounds might help him some. He is going to have to take a step forward off of his most recent efforts, but you're right. This was a pretty quick move from him. I don't think a lot of people were expecting to see Keep Me in Mind move like this yesterday.
He draws into the race, and it's kind of nice to see, Scott, because he did win the Kentucky Jockey Club. It hasn't been a great spring for Keep Me in Mind, but you have to take notice of the fact that he likes this racetrack because he comes in here on the inside, passing another horse that's training here.
Yeah, the affinity for the racetrack, never a bad thing. However, I'm just a little concerned of the fact that he hasn't taken a step forward as a 3-year-old finishing off the board in both starts. You can make an excuse for him like James did in Arkansas with the way the weather went down and whatnot. He's going to need a hot pace regardless to be at his best, but I'm not sure if he's good enough even with that.
All right, we talked about the Kentucky Oaks draw being this morning at 10:45. Looking very forward to that. Looks like it'll be a full field for the Oaks, and it looks like it'll be a full field of 20 for the Kentucky Derby as well. That draw will be tomorrow, Tuesday. Aristides Lounge, presented by Ford, same time as the Oaks draw today, 10:45 a.m. Eastern, and a lot of the connections will be on hand. There will be some oohs and ahs in the crowd with those outside and particularly those inside posts being drawn. The post position draw presented by Ford for the Kentucky Derby, 10:40 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, and we do race live tomorrow as well. It's Champions Day at Churchill Downs. Social media questions, please continue to send those in. We'll get to as many of them as we can here on the show. And we have a question from Cindy on Facebook wanting to know what the panel thinks about Essential Quality. Scott, we'll start with you.
Well, I've been overly impressed with his versatility. He's come from off the pace to win. He's been able to attend the pace, sitting right off it and get the job done. That's his best asset. He's obviously classy. He obviously has a nose for the wire. My biggest question is how far out of it will he be early in this one? And can he continue to get that nose on the wire, make it a perfect 6 for 6?
James, he's never lost. He's earned $2.2 million. He's done it in a lot of different ways, but a lot of people are trying to beat Essential Quality.
Yeah, and I'll echo what Scott said. You know, he's not the flashiest performer, Essential Quality. He sort of like had to grind out his win in the Bluegrass, and that was a pretty hard effort. So a little bit of concern whether, you know, he'll bounce back, continue to move forward off it. But there's no denying his class. I mean, he knows where the wire is, 5 for 5 in his career. I'd be surprised if he finished out of the top 3. He's probably not going to be my win pick, but I got the ultimate respect for Essential Quality, Joe.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing that Scott and James just said with without saying it. He's a very consistent horse. He is the most likely to hit the board if he gets a fair trip. Whether or not I'm going to make him my public selection as a likely 3-5 favorite remains to be seen. All right, more social media questions. If you can send those in over the course of the show, we'll get to as many of them as possible. When we come back here on the Kentucky Derby Morning Show Work Show, you can clear the way for Clairiere. She's a sweet-looking filly. She's coming up next.
The 147th Kentucky Derby is almost here, and Twin Spires players can take advantage of our Kentucky Derby money-back offer all week long. Place a win bet on any Churchill Downs race during Derby week, including Saturday's Run for the Roses, and if your horse finishes second or third, you'll get your money back. Plus, if you are looking for help to find a winner or two, check out our expert picks available on the app for every race. Twin Spires, bet dedicated.
With over 200 flavor notes to discover, every sip of Woodford Reserve Bourbon is a spectacle for the senses.
We're back on the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show presented by TwinSpires.com. Temperature in the mid-40s, but on the rise. Sunny skies. It is very comfortable. It looks like the weather is going to warm up considerably during the course of the week. Looks like Friday and Saturday temperatures in the low 70s, and doesn't look like there's any rain in the forecast, so we could be in line for a beautiful Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby day. Welcome everybody that's here for Dawn at the Downs. And again, if you're watching us on social media, continue to send those questions and those opinions. We'll get to as many of them as possible. Oaks draw a little bit later on with myself, Scott Shapiro as the analyst, Ed DeRosa garnering some interviews as well. Looking very forward to that. And here's the names you're going to see for that draw a little bit later, Scott.
Speaking of looking forward to, I am very much looking forward to the Kentucky Oaks this year. Last year we had a very prohibitive favorite. This year we don't. Very strong group from top to bottom. Lots of horses with big chances.
Track announcer Travis Stone will be emceeing that event in the Aristides Lounge. As you see, 15 Spritz would draw in as an also eligible. So we'll see how these post positions shake out. 10:45 in the morning for the Kentucky Oaks post position draw. Clairiere, we talked about her with Steve Asmussen earlier this morning, and here she is in her workout, James, 49-3. This was just yesterday. Again, you know how Steve trains his horses. Didn't want too much from her. Obviously putting the final touches on her preparations.
Yeah, just listening to Brandon talk about seeing her on the track. I mean, she's made a good appearance so far in the last couple weeks here under the Twin Spires. Got a really big back end, Clairiere does, real powerful finish to her. One thing about her is that she caught slow paces in those races at Fairgrounds this year. It might not be a real fast pace in the Kentucky Oaks, but that might not affect her. She's shown she can win regardless of how fast they're going up front, and she's going to be running late from off the pace, Joe Clairiere.
Yeah, she's been in some slow-paced races, Scott, with the exception maybe of her win in the Rachel Alexandra, which we've talked about. She got a good trip that particular day in best in Travel Column. Travel Column 2, Clairiere 1. We get to see the fourth battle on Saturday, but Malfat's going to have something to say about the result as well. I mean, couldn't be more excited about that race.
Yeah, it really came up strong. We talked about how she's pace-dependent, Clairiere. Not sure if we'll get that pace, but the class and talent is super obvious to me. Anytime a horse wins first out going 2 turns, I take note, especially when they're bred like this one. Out of a multiple stakes winning mare cavorting, she showed her class right away, Joe.
Steve said some really good things in that interview. He's always been very high on Clairiere. Obviously, the pedigree is there for her and Pauline's Pearl, who we're going to take a look at next. But you could hear in Steve's voice that he was a little bit surprised by the fact that Pauline's Pearl got to this point and in the starting gate for the Kentucky Oaks. Took her a little while to break through at Fairgrounds this meet, then went to Oaklawn, and I thought she caught some pretty easy fields, James.
Yeah, and she broke her maiden on the slop. It took her 3 races. Pauline's Pearl did, like you said. Came back and ran in the Honeybee and the Fantasy at Oaklawn Park. Will Secret won the Honeybee over Pauline's Pearl. Didn't run that well in the Ashland. Still a nice filly. And but like you said, I mean, Pauline's Pearl is moving forward at the right time. Steve Asmussen is a 2-time winner of the Kentucky Oaks, both Summerly and Untappable. So he knows how to get a filly ready for the race. And he wasn't really happy with how she trained. He talked about it after the work yesterday. He's pleased with how she's coming in the race, and she is coming in with improving form. It'll just be a matter of whether or not she's good enough, Joe.
Yeah, Scott, this is just a stroll around the racetrack for Pauline's Pearl, 50 3/5, again, finishing touches.
Yeah, unlike her stablemate Clarier, she did take a couple races to figure it out, like we talked about. She's going to have to move forward. The runners in those 3-year-old filly races at Oaklawn Park, not quite as strong, in my opinion, as some of the other venues or circuits around the country, but she's coming into the race off a career best effort, always a positive.
Steve Asmussen with multiple Kentucky Oaks wins on his resume. A trainer that's looking for his first is Bill Mott. Milfoy is his representative this year, and here she is in her workout. I know Rosie Napravnik has been very impressed by Milfoy, as you see her here on the inside. James, certainly headed in the right direction going into the Oaks.
Yeah, interesting to see her work on the inside of a mate right here. Just really keep her company, keep her, interest in it. And yeah, she's got good tactical speed, Milfoil does. Eligible to receive a good trip. You talked about how Rosie really liked how she's training. Being by Curlin. Curlin has 3 fillies in the Oaks, all of them bred for 2-turn distances. And Bill Mott will be looking for his first Oaks winner. Got Joelle Rosario up, picking up the mount and retaking the mount. And she's eligible to get a good trip from just off the pace.
This is a field of fillies that is supposed to be good based on their pedigrees. You saw the grades that I gave to the Kentucky Derby horses for the 1 1/4 pedigree. Let's take a look at my breeding grades for the 1 1/8 Kentucky Oaks. I gave Clarier an A+. By Curlin out of Cavorting, who earned $2 million. Travel Column, she gets an A. She's a homebred daughter she $825,000 by Frost at a half to Neolithic, who earned $1.2 million. Turfy Route Family on the bottom, mouth that also by Curlin. Her dam is Dreaming of Julia, grade 1 winner at age 2, and lots of quality on the dam side of the pedigree there. Milfoy, the Grand Dam, the Great Honest Lady, huge pedigree in that generation. Empire Maker, Chester House, Takarchi, etc. Pauline's Pearl, half to grade 3 winning sprinter Union Jackson, Always Dreaming, Positive Spirit on the dam side of the family. Will Secret, this one's a little bit sneaky. Further back in the pedigree, you've got Jimmy Sims, Economic Model, Your Love, and she will take charge. Will Secret by Will take charge. And finally, Search Results, a dam by Candy Ride. Promising career cut short, never had a chance to stretch out. Lots of raw quality, another generation back in the pedigree of Search Results. Oaks Draw coming up. You see that Ford sign, Built Proud, and we're going to build up the Kentucky Oaks field today and give you the post positions. 14 of them going to the starting gate on Friday. 10:45 in the morning will be the post position draw. I'll be hosting that along with Scott Shapiro, Ed DeRosa, and Travis Stone as well. 10:45 this morning. Make sure you tune in. Got some more social media questions we can get to here as we rapidly approach the 7:30 half hour for the designated training time for the Oaks and Derby horses. Michael on Facebook wants the panel's thoughts on King Fury, and Scott, we'll start with you.
Very impressive runner in the first start of the 3-year-old campaign in the Lexington. Was over and off going. Did get a nice setup that day, but I like the way Brian Hernandez Jr. fits this horse. Comes in second start of the form cycle. Has the pedigree, even though you gave him a B. I give him a B+, A-. I think he's a little better served for this than maybe you. Big horse, should have no problem getting the distance, in my opinion.
James, what do you think of King Fury?
Yeah, I agree with what Scott was saying. Really caught my eye, made a huge move on the far turn of that Lexington Stakes. I remember back in '99, Charismatic came on in that Lexington and Keeneland, and he won the Derby at double-digit odds, like 29-1, I believe. And King Fury is going to be a big price as well. He's 2 for 3 at Churchill Downs, which is another attribute for him. A lot to like about King Fury, Joe.
Yeah, I love the pedigree as well. Obviously cost almost $1 million, and this one little bit sprinty on the dam side. We'll see if the 1.25 mile distance works in his favor for trainer Kenny McPeak. Lots of activity. Horses heading out, hoping to see the two Californians, Rock Your World and also Hot Rod Charlie. We'll be right back.
The 147th Kentucky Derby is almost here, and Twin Spires players can take advantage of our Kentucky Derby money-back offer all week long. Place a win bet on any Churchill Downs race during Derby week, including Saturday's Run for the Roses, and if your horse finishes second or third, you'll get your money back. Plus, if you are looking for help to find a winner or two, check out our expert picks available on the app for every race. Twin Spires, bet dedicated.
One moment, you're up in the sky. And the next, you're in a free fall, 10,000 feet above the ocean. You have 30 seconds between you and the water's surface. And it's these 30 seconds that define who you are. Because how we face the fall is what separates the pioneer spirit from the rest. This is your legacy.
Good look here at Super Stock as the horses come out onto the racetrack for the designated training. 15 minutes for the Derby and Hoax. We talked to Steve Asmussen about Super Stock earlier by Dialed In, who was 8th in the 2011 Kentucky Derby as the lukewarm 5-1 favorite. This one cost only $70,000 as a Keeneland September yearling. And you mentioned it, Scott, family affair involved with this one. Obviously special to just be here for Steve and his family.
Yeah, Steve always excited about his runners, but you could hear a little extra in his voice when we talked about Super Stock in that interview just a couple moments ago. Unlike his stablemate Midnight Bourbon, I expect him to be off the pace in this one. He got a very, very nice trip in that Arkansas Derby win. My biggest concern with this horse is whether he can continue to move forward in just 3 weeks off of that career best effort.
Again, Midnight Bourbon slated to work for Steve Asmussen this morning. James, Super Stock, we talked about the family affair. It's a family operation from his father, Keith, to his mother, Marilyn, to his brother, Cash, and now his son, who's been a rider as well. Just an operation that has had so much success. And as I mentioned earlier today, Steve's going to be the all-time leading trainer in the history of the sport sometime this fall, most likely.
Yes, he will get there eventually. He's fast approaching that milestone, all-time most wins in thoroughbred racing. But he is looking for his first Kentucky Derby win as a trainer, 0 for 21 with 2 seconds and 2/3. So if Super Stock could do it, if he can keep moving forward off that Arkansas Derby upset win, it would really be extra special considering it came with a horse with such close family ties, Joe.
Steve mentioned that Midnight Bourbon should go about 50 seconds to the half mile. They don't want to do a lot with him today, Scott, as he puts the finishing touches on his preparation. And we've had some social media questions about who we think are the most impressive horses physically in the Derby and the Oaks. I would say Midnight Bourbon in the Derby might be number one for me. Just an absolute specimen of a racehorse.
No doubt about it, Joe. And what I found interesting, even when we interviewed Steve, is that it seems to me, the more I look at this, that he's going to be very prominently placed, whether he's on the lead or just off it. That's where he does his best running. He's a little geared up earlier in the week, might be amped up come Derby time. I would not be surprised at all if Mike Smith is extremely aggressive out of the gate. We'll find out a little more with the Derby draw, but Midnight Bourbon, expect him to be aggressive.
Yeah, James, Steve pretty much said it, what Scott just said. I mean, listening to him, kind of expect Midnight Bourbon to be forwardly placed. He went gate to wire in the Lecomte at the fairgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love that pickup of Mike Smith. You get a 2-time Kentucky Derby winning jockey. Mike Smith's really good on front-running types. I mean, he's just appears to be peaking right now in his skin, back-to-back bullet 5 furlong works, and I love that last move. He went a lot faster than it looked, in my opinion. And that's the kind of horse that if he breaks well, he's definitely going to be in that top 1, 2, or 3, you would think, going past the sands the first time, Joe.
Mike Smith had a lot of success for Steve Asmussen aboard Midnight Bisou. This is Midnight Bourbon for this year's Kentucky Derby, but this is the horse that everybody has to beat. Essential quality, You know, we've talked about it, undefeated, $2.2 million in earnings, would look to become the third winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, to also win the Kentucky Derby, Scott. And obviously the credentials are there, but we're all trying to poke holes because we want a better price.
Yeah, horse racing is a gambling game for many of us, Joe, pari-mutuel. So while Essential Quality to many might be the most likely winner, whether you're willing to accept the likely price is another story. And I'm not going to be able to go with him on top in this race. I just think there's other horses that are close to him, but his credentials, as you mentioned, strong. And we've talked a lot about his versatility, being able to be close to the pace, but more in the Kentucky Derby. I expect him to be more mid-pack like he was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Only 3 horses in this year's Derby field with a previous win at Churchill Downs. Actually 4 now. Essential Quality, Mandaloon, Hidden Stash, and King Fury, who James mentioned earlier. Here's Midnight Bourbon again, and James, we talked to Steve about what he's expecting, half mile, 50 seconds flat. It's interesting, we talked to Brandon Staubel over the course of the week. Different trainers do things differently. The Derby is coming up on Saturday. This is the only Derby horse to work this morning here locally. It's just kind of the way Steve does things.
It really is, and I think his first work here was on a Saturday, and then his last work was on Sunday, and now they're falling right into that pattern that Steve Asmussen loves to use, that last Monday maintenance work before a big Saturday race. Brandon's talked about how Asmussen likes to walk his horses before work. You can see Midnight Bourbon out there just taking his time, getting used to the surroundings, and doing a slow walk around the track before he gets going, Joe.
Scott, only 3 Kentucky Derby winners have gone into the race off of a 6-week layoff for more. Animal Kingdom, Needles way back in 1956, and in the strange 2020 year, Authentic. This year, several qualify. Hot Rod Charlie, Midnight Bourbon, Mandaloon, all ran in the Louisiana Derby, and Helium 8 weeks since the Tampa Bay Derby.
Yeah, that is an interesting fact, Joe. And to me, it's important, but not something that I stress in my handicapping. Sure, 4 weeks is probably ideal. Florida Derby, that's a lot of the reason why a lot of those runners have had success. But I'm not going to knock a horse that I like coming in that's training well because he's coming in off 6 weeks rest.
Steve Asmussen has alluded to the fact that he really thinks, James, that Midnight Bourbon is going to become an even better horse as he gets older. A lot of the Tisnows fit in that category, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of Gun Runner in that he ran a great third in the Derby, but man, was he a good older horse.
Yeah, and he hopes he gets there a little bit faster than Gun Runner, because you're right, Gun Runner was third that day, but he was a weak hitting third. He really got better past the first Saturday of May of his 3-year-old season. Steve Asmussen talked about it with Midnight Bourbon. The horse has grown into his frame. He's a real big, strong individual. He's starting to put on weight, add maturity. You're right. I think he's absolutely peaking physically coming into the Derby. It's just going to be a matter of he's good enough.
My one thought with Midnight Bourbon is he appears to be coming into the race well. Is it, can he pass other horses? Both of his wins have been where he's been right on the lead or on the lead, relatively slow fraction. So, again, we talked about the pace being a little bit murkier with Caddo River. I would really expect, the more I consider the pace scenario and the race shape for Mike Smith to send, be aggressive and make them come catch this Son of Tisnow.
Could definitely see that. 9 of the last 10 Kentucky Derby winners won their final prep. Midnight Bourbon does not fit into that category. Country House was the only one of those 10 not to win their final prep, and he didn't cross the finish line first in the Kentucky Derby either, the adjudicated winner. James, looked like Midnight Bourbon's about set to break off for his half-mile breeze here.
Yeah, there he goes, and, just under a nice snug hold from the rider, not going to let him do too much. I think he's a really athletic-looking individual and just cruising along right now. Looks like he's going pretty good, Joe.
Yeah, definitely need to maybe try to slow him down a little bit here to hit that 50 mark, as he's definitely a little bit eager, but that's to be expected. It's a nice, cool morning. Horses are feeling good, and yeah, he's just kind of galloping around there now, Scott.
Yeah, and we talked about it. I'm not, an expert at all on the works, but Rosie and Brandon Staubel have talked about working alone versus working with a workmate. Probably a little bit worried about him getting too amped up if he's working with another horse. So working alone here seems to be coming into the race well.
Midnight Bourbon, the only Kentucky Derby horse expected to work this morning. Everybody else has put in their final preparations over the course of the last couple of days, either here or elsewhere. We do have Brooklyn Strong, who I believe worked this morning. Try to get you some information on his status if we can during the course of this show. Otherwise, I'm sure information will be provided via our media department on Twitter a little bit later on as soon as we find out something about him. But Midnight Bourbon, you would think that's exactly what they wanted. We'll try to get a final workout time from Kevin Kirstein from our media department. James, you didn't have a clock on that one?
I did not have the clock on that one, Joe, but I'll tell you, he really galloped out strong, went around that first turn with a lot of energy. Impossible for me to knock anything, which I just saw.
Yeah, certainly the picture of health and an imposing individual is Midnight Bourbon. I've been back on the backstretch several times to visit him for a stallion. He certainly is kind, and we'll see if he can bring his A-plus game on Saturday. Now, a horse who we had a good view of in the Louisiana Derby, Midnight Bourbon that is this guy who went gate to wire, Hot Rod Charlie. And there he is with the legendary Lava Man, the pony who during his racing career earned $5.2 million, one of the best horses trained by Doug O'Neill, who's on the Hall of Fame ballot as a nominee. Might get in, obviously, this year. The 2 Kentucky Derby wins, Scott, should help the cause.
Lava Man, a super cool horse during his career, big overachiever. But Hot Rod Charlie, Joe, like Essential Quality, has proven not to be race shape dependent, and that's a huge key in the Kentucky Derby. You might not get that perfect trip like you have in some of the smaller field races. He ran big from off the pace in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and then was on the lead, surprisingly, at least to me, in that race in New Orleans, the Twin Spires Louisiana Derby. He, like Midnight Bourbon, comes in off 6 weeks rest, but needs to take a step forward. He hasn't really shown as much development as I would like to see, but other than that, he's hard to knock.
You mentioned Monarco's 20-year anniversary of his Kentucky Derby win. Lava Man actually turned 20 on March 20th, his 20th birthday, and loves his job as a pony, escorting Hot Rod Charlie out to the track. And James, this is his first look at Churchill Downs, and Hot Rod Charlie, though, has had no problem shipping. He's run well at various venues.
Yeah, looking at him from a little bit of a distance, I mean, he looks pretty happy. He's a big, I've seen photos, watched his previous works. He's real muscular, really appears to be in just great shape for Doug O'Neill. Lava Man served as a pony in 2012 for I'll Have Another, and in 2016 for Nyquist. So he's happy in this role. And you're right about Doug O'Neill. He is 2 for 6 in the Kentucky Derby. If it winds up being 3 for 7 after this year, it's going to be hard to deny him the Triple Crown. Hasn't had a starter since 2017, so he just doesn't ship any 3-year-old to try to get in the race. He's coming here to win, and I like the Louisiana Derby more than Scott did for the horse. I thought he showed like he had multiple gears in that race. He took it right to him from the start. He can be placed anywhere, and I expect him to run well on Saturday.
If you put Hot Rod Charlie up against Midnight Bourbon, he would be dwarfed by that rival, which makes it even more impressive that Midnight Bourbon couldn't get to him in the Louisiana Derby. Big heart on that engine for Hot Rod Charlie. Here's Rock Your World. This is one of those horses coming into the Kentucky Derby, Scott, where you say to yourself, man, he ran huge in the Santa Anita Derby. He was a turf horse before that, and he's got a big, high knee action kind of stride, but tough to deny the fact that he was just awesome in the Santa Anita Derby. No one got close to him. He galloped out hugely in front. One of those horses that you have to fear. A lot of people are either on one side of the fence or the other. A lot more on the contender side of the fence, though.
Not the kind of horse that I wager on going into a race, the Santa Anita Derby. Rock Your World coming in off 2 turf races, but he ran faster. Even though the pedigree might have suggested that he was more of a turf horse, he earned a flashy 102 Brisnet speed rating for John Sadler in that front-running event. We'll see. I mean, a lot of people have him on the lead. Whether he's on the lead or right off, it remains to be seen. It's his first start out of Southern California. That's a major question, but he's likely to take quite a bit of support at the windows.
Yeah, James, I mean, he went fast in the Santa Anita Derby and kept going. You would think with a horse that's got turfy pedigree, who probably has never had dirt in his face in his life, that would be the intention, to make the lead or at least be in the clear and forwardly placed.
Yeah, I think the defection of Caddo River coming out of the race really benefits Rock Your World. I think also he was in an inside post in that Santa Anita Derby, and that's why they sent him to the lead. He might not have been in front if he had been on an outside post, but that performance showed like the formula for him. I don't think he wants to be behind horses in the Derby. If he's not first, he's going to be in the clear, and he's going to be right up close from the start with Joel Rosario taking up over the mount on Rock Your World.
I don't know if it's Michael Canale's intention, but always at the end of this training period, we get soup and sandwich right around the time I'm getting hungry, Scott.
Yeah, I don't blame him for being hungry. We get a little bit of an early start, a little earlier lunch than normal. But Soup and Sandwich, the son of Into Mischief, has done very little wrong in his career. For trainer Mark Cassidy, one of a few lightly raced horses with just 3 races coming into the Kentucky Derby. He gets Tyler Gaffalione. Again, we've talked about a number of horses that could be on the lead in here, not a definite pace setter. Soup and Sandwich is one of those also that could be sent aggressively, depending on his draw by jockey Tyler Gaffalione.
From Soup and Sandwich to Kentucky Oaks contender Will Secret. Lemons Forever dropped a bomb on Churchill when she won the Kentucky Oaks for Dallas Stewart, I believe at 47-1. James, now we have Will Secret for Dallas in this year's Oaks.
Yeah, and she's shown some versatility. She's raced on the pace, off the pace. Definitely a filly that's made good progress this over the winter and spring. Got a little bit of exposed perhaps in that Ashland, but maybe she can move forward off the experience and be a factor in the stretch. Like you said, Dallas Stewart won the 06 Kentucky Oaks with Lemons Forever at a price, and Will Secret should be a price for him on Friday.
While we take a look at some of the horses on the track here during the designated training hour, we'll get to a couple of more social media questions. And we've talked about it a little bit, but I'd like to get a more defined answer from you guys. John on YouTube wants to know, who do you think will set the pace with Cattle River out, Scott?
Well, I think it'll be dependent a little bit on the draw tomorrow that we'll be taking part in. 20 horses. If you're drawing inside, you have less options than if you're drawing outside. But a couple of horses, Rock Your World, Medina Spirit, and Soup and Sandwich, to me, are the ones that come to mind. I would think that Bob Baffert and Johnny V are going to be aggressive with Midnight Spirit. They stalked off of Rock Your World in the San Diego Derby. It didn't work. I think they might try to change tactics.
And James Steve Asmussen earlier saying that Midnight Bourbon likely will be forwardly placed. He won the Compt, gate to wire. Maybe this is a horse that should be forward in the Kentucky Derby as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rock Your World, he would be the favorite if you put a poll up who will be setting the pace. But, another horse I'll mention is Hot Rod Charlie. I like to switch to Flavian Pratt. Pratt was on Country House in 2019, and he had him in 5th. And in the clear going into the backstretch, ideal spot in that big field. Hopefully he can get Hot Rod Charlie out there in a good spot as well in the early going.
Yeah, that's an interesting call because he did surprise us in the Twin Spires Louisiana Derby being on the lead. But I thought that was a little more circumstantial. And then knowing Flavian Pratt pretty well from my time out in Southern California, doesn't strike me as the rider that is overly aggressive, has very good hands, can relax horses nicely. But that's another, if he draws inside or if he gets out of the gate well, James, you could be right.
We are asked some social media questions during the course of the morning. Send some more in. We've got a little bit of extra time today to answer a few of those. Looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say and what you have to ask. Who are the most beautifully conformed Oaks and Derby horses? Nora on Facebook wants to know. And I mentioned Midnight Bourbon, Clariere, Malathat is absolutely beautiful as well. Thinking of Kentucky Derby horses, Known Agenda kind of has some size to him too. A lot of it has to do with size and physical makeup. A lot of it has to do with talent. Obviously, past performances, essential qualities, kind of a bigger horse as well. But when that final quarter of a mile hits and they hit that wall of sound, Scott, heart and maturity certainly comes into play.
Yeah, Dynamic One is a horse I'm very high on. I'm going to add to the mix that's been physically impressive. They spent $725,000 for this son of Union Rags. He's done nothing to take me off of him from a handicapping perspective from what I've seen so far in the mornings, Joe.
Anybody else impress you physically, Derby or Oaks, James?
No, I'll agree with what Scott said about Dynamic One. He's really caught my eye. I thought it was interesting when we had Todd Pletcher on the show. He talked about what a great workhorse he was, and he's shown it in the mornings. Clariere would be my pick in the Oaks. That Curlin filly, I just love her size and build.
Yeah, I would say Mandaloon too. I mean, He's come out here like a machine, and he's just like an absolute specimen of a racehorse.
No, I totally agree with that. That's a good call. He's definitely been one of the most impressive. We haven't seen him or talked about him as much in the last couple of days, so slipped my mind a little.
Yeah, Midnight Bourbon worked earlier. We're going to re-rack that and show that to you again. Again, just an easy work. Seeing if we can maybe get a final time on that move. There it is right there. This is 6 furlongs and 116.40. Again, I'm thinking more of a gallop out time for that. We'll see if that's going to be the official public workout time. I'm interested to see, I'm guessing, at least 50 seconds for the half mile here, Scott.
Yes, and again, working alone here, Midnight Bourbon in his last preparation for the race. It should be exactly what Steve Asmussen said he wanted to get out of him, out of the work when we talked to him earlier this morning. Looking good, has looked good from the start of when we started seeing him here at Churchill Downs. My question is, can he pass others? Will he be aggressively sent by Mike Smith? But he certainly is coming into the race well and is well rested, as we've talked about.
Kevin Kirstein tweeting it out just moments ago, 24 and 2/5, 49 and 3/5 for the half. Looks like the published time is going to be 102 and 2/5, and then galloping out the time that you see on your screen there, 116.40, 116 and 2/5. For those of you that would like to try to convert that fraction into a decimal, and Midnight Bourbon galloping out fine. This is exactly what they want. You know, sometimes you think about a horse that might be forwardly placed. Oh, we want to show a little bit more speed, James, in the morning with him, but that's just not how Steve Asmussen operates.
Yeah, I mean, if there's going to be a mistake made by the rider, it's going to be going too slow.
Probably going to be his last mistake, James.
Yeah, but he does not. There's no chance an exercise rider is going to let the horse go too fast on that final breeze. 49 and change, he went pretty solid, almost hit that 50-second mark we were talking about for the half-mile split. Just another good move. He's doing well. Midnight Bourbon is, Joe.
Very specific question here, Scott. You and I both a fan of the Thoroughgraph figures, the Bristnet Speed figures, obviously, as well. But Darren on Facebook wants to know from you, Scott, who catches your eye on the Thoroughgraph sheets?
It's a great question. I mean, Essential Qualities run the fastest, consistent numbers as well as highly motivated. But I've talked about Dynamic One. It's kind of a sneaky sheet, more so than the fastest sheet. But he has that number to go back to as a 2-year-old, which is something I look for. It shows the ability to grow into yourself as a 3-year-old. He's had some trouble voyage. He hasn't delivered what Todd Pletcher and the connections had hoped for, but he got back to that number last time out in the wood. And I know he got run down by a long shot in Bourbonic, but he still ran a good number. I think if he's ever going to break through with a big one, it's going to be this time out.
Yeah, you look at replays, you look at pedigrees, you look at what you see on the morning work show, Thoroughgraph numbers, I think give you a huge advantage.
Definitely, and their package is up right now on Thoroughgraph.com. I know they're doing a seminar later on in the week. Definitely love using their numbers as well as our Bristnet Speed figures.
Obesos coming into the Kentucky Derby potentially as a live price shot, third in the Louisiana Derby. He trained like a monster earlier this past weekend for trainer Greg Foley, second consecutive Derby starter for him after Major Fed last year. And I like Obesos to pick up some pieces late. He's going to pick up pieces. It's just a matter of how many. But he has been impressive. He's not the most imposing looking horse, but he looks great in the flesh. And boy, is he a smooth mover, Scott.
Yeah, and he's overachieved, I think, in terms of getting the distance. I know they gave him a shot in the Risen Star off of that allowance win at just 6 panels, and he ran pretty well at 1 1/8 at odds of 21-1. No, didn't lose anything in defeat, losing to Mandaloon, Proxy, and Midnight Bourbon. And then it's hard to knock that Louisiana Derby on March 20th when he came from off the pace. The top 2 runners were prominent that day. The only one making up ground just missed second, 96 late pace rating. Obeso should be finishing well.
James, quickly, since the point system was instituted, we don't have any of those crazy sprinters going out there setting hot fractions and setting the table for a closer. You need to be forwardly placed in the Derby at least the last several years.
Yeah, that's true, but I mean, to win, that's for certain. But to hit the board, I mean, there's still going to be some closers. I think Mr. Big News, perfect example last year, rallying for third at big odds. And Obesos is one of those horses I think that's caught the eye, along with King Fury. Didn't really know what to think about those 2 long shots coming in the week, but I've liked the way both of them have trained.
Some great offers at twinspires.com each and every day. If you like to play the horses, you know, not only is it fast, safe, and easy to use, but you get all kinds of great offers that you can opt into to put some money back into your account or that you compete with other people for, including this one, the money back offer. Twin Spires got a fantastic promotion for Derby Week. It runs all week long, and it's on every race at Churchill Downs. Place a win bet on any race, and if your horse that you bet doesn't win but runs second or third, we're going to give you up to $10 back. Promotional offer is open to all Twin Spires players. Doesn't matter if you're a new player or an existing one. All you have to do is opt in. twinspires.com/offers. Now, we get some great merch here on the set that makes up a good percentage, as Scott told me earlier, of his current wardrobe. You've got the Kentucky Derby jackets. We got lots of great polos. And you can wear a lot of the stuff that we're wearing or get your collectible glass. This is the place to go, Scott, and you got a great promotional code to get you a little bit of extra money off as well.
10% off, can't beat it. Some great products in there. The Kentucky Derby. I really like that flashy Churchill Downs gray hat on the left, not Kentucky Derby specific, but I think it's the slick look. I hope to get one myself soon.
Yeah, if you've never been to the Kentucky Derby Museum, I mean, I like to go in there, about 10 days before the Derby, watch that Kentucky Derby movie that they put on. It really, really hypes you up for everything that's to come. It's a great place to visit if you've never been to the Kentucky Derby Museum, and obviously an opportunity to buy some great merchandise if you're not going to make it on site as well. You see the fans gathering here. Welcome to everybody on the apron. Beautiful sunny day. Welcome to everybody at Dawn at the Downs as well. And it's been kind of in his nature the last week or so to send some of these horses out after that 7:45 time for the horses to come off the track. Scott, his horses come on. Todd Pletcher with some of his Kentucky Derby contenders here. We're getting a look at Bourbonic, who's another one, much like Obesos, who should come from way out of it.
Yeah, I would suspect taking Kendrick Carmouche to take this son of Bernardini to the back, Joe, and come with one late run. We talked a lot about Known Agenda, the addition of blinkers moving him forward. The same has happened for this 3-year-old colt, also Todd Pletcher's. Broke through with that maiden breaking score. The maiden claiming $50,000 ranks. Huge move up, because continued to move up, and Kendrick gave him a great ride from well off the pace to just beat Dynamic One in the Wood Memorial.
James, the Wood Memorial was a strange race, and it was definitely a slow race. They went slow early. They went slower late. The Gazelle was faster. Bourbonic closed from last. Dynamic One was second. And I know Dynamic One's getting a lot of hype going into the Kentucky Derby, but I can't get past how slow the Wood Memorial was.
Yeah, it was a really slow track that day, though, and the pace itself was slow in the woods. So, Bourbonic was at the end of the pack. Dynamic One was mid-pack. I will give credit to Dynamic One. I thought he made a really strong move to the lead, turned back a stiff challenge from the third-place finisher that afternoon, and then just got nailed on the wire. It was a remarkable late run for Bourbonic, but whether or not he could pass 19 horses at Churchill this Saturday remains to be seen, but he will be running from far back in the early going.
You make a good point. I was more impressed with Dynamic One than Bourbonic that day, not to take anything away from the winner. He was also wide throughout that day, and I think he's still learning things a little bit. He just has that one lifetime win, learning to seal the deal, as Todd Pletcher kind of put it in his interviews this week. I think if he gets a little bit of a better voyage and the ride is timed right, he's going to run a really big race. But Bourbonic will be coming from way out of it.
Pam on Facebook wants to know if there are any foreign horses in the race this year. Of course, we have the Japan Road to the Derby. We have the European Road to the Derby. James, no Lonnie's in this year's field. We like that international flavor, but not this year.
Yeah, no international flavor. We might have some international pedigrees for the broodmares or extended pedigrees, but no direct ties this year overseas, Joe.
Question here from Crystal on Facebook. Who are the lowest and highest priced horses in this year's Kentucky Derby? Well, we mentioned Medina Spirit earlier. That's a horse that sold for just $1,000, was flipped as a 2-year-old in training for $35,000. Talk about Superstock, sold for $70,000 as a yearling. James, it just goes to show you can have these royally bred homebreds, you can have these big ticket items at the sale, but you're always going to have a handful of horses in the Oaks and Derby that weren't necessarily supposed to be those kinds of horses based on the auction prices they sold for.
Yeah, absolutely. And Todd Pletcher, a great example there with, he had Sainthood, it was $62,000. He has Dynamic One at $7.25. A good horse can come from anywhere, Joe, any venue, any bloodlines. Having the best bred and the best looking horses is always an advantage, but a good one can come from anywhere. Rock
Your World sold for over $600,000. Malathaat, the filly, sold for over $1 million. King Fury, Scott, sold for $950,000. And James just mentioned Sainthood, Scott. We got him next on the screen, and I saw him on Risen Star Day at the fairgrounds. He was all out to beat Dolder Grand, who still hasn't broken his maiden. Then he takes the route, instead of the Louisiana Derby, which would have been a tough ask, he goes to Turfway for the Jeff Ruby Stakes and runs a deceivingly good second. What I like about him more than Like a King is the fact that he has run on dirt, and he really seemed to take a major step forward in that race at Turfway.
Yeah, and adding on to that, a couple things. He has tactical speed. He overcame adversity in that runner-up effort in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. You mentioned it was deceivingly good. Maybe not as fast as some of the other preps, obviously over a different surface than he'll run over in the Kentucky Derby. But he also gets Corey Lanery, who my guess is he's going to try to save ground, Joe. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I've seen that move. We saw it when he ran second a couple years ago. James, the name is escaping me now, but it was for Steve Asmussen.
Looking at Lee.
Yeah, looking at Lee, and I cashed a big ticket that day, and
yeah.
Yeah, it was a good one for all of us, even the people back in the control room. But, yeah, so Sainthood, he's got some versatility. He's a little bit interesting underneath to me, Scott.
Yeah, that was a biased racetrack that day, to say the least, and Corey Lanery.
Rail, always dreaming, right?
Yep, but the only two horses that were basically over the right part of the racetrack, a lot of the horses over that not so good going.
James, Sainthood, one of the horses in this year's field who did not start at age 2. Only 2 others, Rock Your World and Soup and Sandwich. The Apollo curse was broken by Justify a couple of years ago. But horses that did not start at age 2, and again, Rock Your World's going to be the favorite since 1937. They're 1 for 64.
Yeah, and that was Justify that won, and he was pretty much a star. He won the Santa Anita Derby, like the fastest Brisnet speed rating ever for a Kentucky Derby prep. So he was a star coming in the race. Some of these other lightly raced ones are unraced juveniles, perhaps don't have that much talent, but they only have to beat the horses they face on Saturday, Joe. So inexperience won't necessarily stop them. It's whether or not they'll be good enough.
Sainthood by M. Shawish, who did not compete in the Triple Crown Globetrotter, earned over $2 million in his career, was good on both turf and dirt. Sainthood, 1 of 4 in the race for trainer Todd Pletcher.
You did the pedigree work. You got some of the horses in the field. How do you feel about Sainthood's pedigree? I know you just mentioned it.
Yeah, not great. I mean, obviously sold for $62,000. He R&A'd for $90,000. He did sell for $100,000 as a short yearling, but I gave him a D+ on pedigree.
Tough grader.
For a mile and a quarter on dirt against some of the rest of these horses in here. Doesn't quite stack up, but again, it doesn't necessarily matter on the first Saturday in May. You have to run the race on the track. All right, so we've got another promotion from Twin Spires that we want to talk about, and this is more about helping the people cash some tickets, Scott. You do the expert picks, Darren Zacali, also Brian Nadeau, and of course Ed DeRosa, a host of people providing expert picks on TwinSpires.com and the Twin Spires app. They're easy to use, about 45 seconds to a minute long. You get some help if you need a little bit of it.
Yeah, straight to the point. You can use them for a number of in different ways. If you don't have an opinion, you're looking to put in a quick wager. Maybe it's a race where you don't have an opinion. It's the third leg of your pick 4. You want to find out what an expert or someone that's following the circuit maybe closer than you or that has a different perspective. Definitely worth taking a look at. Very short and quick and to the point, like you mentioned.
Yeah, just great offers on TwinSpires.com and the Twin Spires app, which is super easy to use. Just make sure, expert picks are available just each and every day. But for those offers, make sure you opt in. Getting really excited. We're getting closer, everybody. The Kentucky Oaks draw. We're going to find out the post positions. We've been handicapping these races for 4 months, Scott. Now we get to visualize exactly how it might play out. You're going to be the analyst. I'm the host. Ed DeRosa is going to be getting interviews to find out what the combatants think of their post positions, but this is going to happen just a few hours from now.
Yeah, some years with the Oaks, with the 14 or less horses, the draw might not be that important, but I think it's important this year. There's no clear speed horse like there was last year with Gamine. The draw might dictate who's going to go, who might sit outside. A horse like Travel Column has had outside stalking trips in his last couple. If he draws the inside, will he go? We'll see.
All right, that's going to put a wrap on the Kentucky Derby Morning Work Show as we give our final thoughts of the day. I've got a few different ones running around in my mind, always wishing the best to Brandon Stovall and his wife, Corey. They are expecting today, so hopefully we get some information on that a little bit later on. Let's get your final thoughts, Scott. We'll get James's, and then I'll sort out mine.
Yeah, the first thought is tip of the cap to Brandon and his wife. Best of luck to them. We'll miss them here, but obviously more important things even then, the Kentucky Derby. To some, maybe, but yeah, it was good to see Midnight Bourbon and to talk to Steve Asmussen today. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of tactics they use. Mike Smith aboard.
James, up on the 4th floor. Beautiful morning here. Looking forward to some racing this week in the Kentucky Oaks draw a little bit later on this morning. Your final thought from today?
Yeah, this is the best vantage point at the track. Great weather. It's going to be good weather tomorrow. Come on out and check out the workers. And I just want to mention, it was good to see Midnight Bourbon's work. I thought he looked good on the track like he has the whole last couple weeks. Hot Rod Charlie, Rock Your World, they didn't do much. First visit to the track, expected them to be galloping a little bit more in the days to come. And I will offer my best wishes as well to Brandon and his wife, Corey. Look forward to tomorrow morning, Joe.
All right, thanks, James. And I think Steve Asmussen mentioning to us during the course of that interview that Midnight Bourbon, based on the defection of Caddo River, even more so thinking about getting that horse on or near the lead during the course of the Kentucky Derby, took a lot from that. And then after the show is over, I'm going to roll back the tape. I'm going to play it a few times, and I'm going to practice how to say Steve's last name correctly. Thought I was doing it. Maybe not. Maybe it's a Chicago accent, but I am intent on getting it right.
Hey, I mean, I would want my last name said right, but he said so many ways. I thought it was a very good question to end the interview.
Asmussen, a lot easier than Chris Effect for most people. That's going to wrap it up for the Kentucky Derby Morning Workout Show presented by TwinSpires.com. Kentucky Oaks Draw, 10:45 this morning from the Aristides Lounge. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody.